I had what people would call a toxic relationship in middle school. There was a kid I knew in primary school. I guess I'd call him a friend of mine, but honestly, he was kind of insane. And depending on who you asked, I'm sure some of the teachers would have told you he was bullying me. I got into quite a lot of trouble with him, well, actually. Technically, it was mostly him who was getting into trouble, but I ended up in the principal's office so many times having to explain the crazy stuff he and I used to get up to. On the one hand, he had a crazy, vivid imagination. He'd spend lunchtime running around the school grounds pretending to be in the middle of a battle in World War II against the Germans, getting into epic firefights and so on. But he would get so into it, it was contagious, and I couldn't help but join in. He'd lead me into his imaginary fray, shouting, "Move, move, move, grenade, get down, private." Then suddenly, at a moment's notice, he'd drop down to the ground and start crawling commando style through some shrubs with the most intense look on his face. And he had this crazy ability to construct very impressive little bases, basically huts, tents, in the forest. Mostly out of twigs, dead leaves, and other stuff he'd just find laying on the ground. Try as I might, I could never build them as well as him. Hanging out with him was always an adventure, because when he got into something, he was so into it, and I couldn't help but just join in and have a good time. On the other hand, he also wore steel cap boots to school, would repeatedly remind me that he was wearing steel cap boots, and would kick me in the shins with them to demonstrate. Pretty sure I came home with bruises on my legs multiple times. Pulled a box cutter on me one day, on school grounds would have random outbursts of extremely aggressive behavior, such as pushing me up against a wall, red-faced and furious and looking like he was about to lay into me, unprovoked. Despite his sudden and frequent mood swing, he was actually a fun kid to hang out with a lot of the time. I'd hang out with him after school, and honestly, I think his mom was happy to see that he'd made a friend, because he tended to push other kids away with his behavior. The lunchtime war role play was always a blast, and it was great fun building stuff out of sticks in the bush. Just because he got so into everything he did, and it was contagious. Joining in was always a blast. I ended up in the principal's office so often to resolve disputes between us. The principal would often ask why I continued to be friends with the guy. Honestly, my friendship with this kid gave me a little bit of an insight into how abusive relationships might form, and how people can end up feeling trapped in them and keep coming back despite their better judgment. He moved to another state after 6th grade, and I never saw him again. He did send me one letter about a month after moving, though. Apparently, he wrote it at his school athletics carnival, told me how he missed hanging out with me, and was gushing about how much fun he was having competing in the events. He wrote that he had just come third in the 100-meter race and was currently coming second in the 200-meter race. So I'm thinking to myself, did he write this while he was running the race or after? I wrote back to him, but he never replied after that. Do you guys think I should have cut him off, or still keeping him as a friend was the right move to make?